Fedwire processes $4.3 trillion every single day. BNY Mellon, the institution that custodies one in every $4 in the United States, is already working with Ripple and holds its stablecoin reserves. And Hidden Road, a prime broker acquired by Ripple, is settling $3.5 trillion every year using RLUSD right now. Ripple has filed for a national banking charter. Most people still have not put those four facts together. Before we go any further, did you know that Ripple already had active operational connections to major U.S. financial institutions before this banking application was even filed? Drop a yes or a no in the comments right now. This is not financial advice. This content is for educational and formational purposes only. Always do your own research before making any financial decisions. If this kind of institutional analysis, breaking down what is actually happening behind the headlines, is useful to you, hit the like button. It helps more people who need to see this find the channel. Now, let me walk you through exactly what happened and what it means for the thesis you have been holding. When Ripple filed for a national banking charter, most coverage treated it as a headline event. A crypto company wants to become a bank. That framing misses the point entirely and the reasons why matter. A national banking charter in the United States is issued and overseen by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the OC. The OC is the federal body responsible for regulating and supervising national banks. When the OC grants a charter, it means the U.S. federal government has completed a thorough review of that company's financial health, legal structure, compliance systems, and operational capacity. Every standard has been assessed. The government is not simply granting a license to operate. It is saying this institution meets every benchmark we hold national banks to. That endorsement changes what a company can do, and it changes how every other institution in the world perceives that company the moment it is issued. Once Ripple holds a national banking charter, it can walk into any meeting with any global bank, any central bank, any government regulator, any institutional partner anywhere in the world. And that document changes the conversation before a word is spoken. Counterparties no longer need to conduct their own extensive due diligence on whether Ripple meets regulatory standards. The U.S. federal government already did that work for an industry that has spent years fighting for institutional credibility. This is a structural shift. The charter also unlocks direct connectivity to Federal Reserve payment systems, specifically three of them: Fedwire, Fed, and FedNow. Most people outside the financial sector have never encountered these names. Fedwire is the Federal Reserve's real-time gross settlement system, the infrastructure that handles the largest, highest value transactions in the United States. When one major bank needs to settle a large transaction with another major bank, Fedwire is the system they use. It processes $4.3 trillion every single day. That is more money moving through one settlement system in a single day than the annual gross domestic product of many developed countries. Fedwire is the financial backbone of the United States. FedAC handles automated clearinghouse transactions, payroll processing, direct deposits, routine bank-to-bank transfers. Most Americans interact with it constantly without knowing it. FedNow is newer infrastructure. The Federal Reserve's real-time payment system designed to allow instant settlement at any hour on any day of the year. No batch processing windows, no overnight delays, instant. Right now, to access any of these Federal Reserve systems, a company must route through a banking intermediary, an institution that already holds Fed access. That intermediary charges fees. It introduces processing time, it adds failure points, and it extracts a portion of every transaction that flows through it. The intermediary is a toll built into the center of the financial highway. If Ripple holds a national banking charter, that toll disappears. Ripple would sit directly inside the Federal Reserve System. Transactions involving XRP or RLUSD could settle directly through FedWire or FedNow, not as an experimental technology sitting on top of the traditional system, but as a direct participant in the same infrastructure that the largest financial institutions in the world depend on every single day. The cost picture becomes concrete with specific numbers. Moving $1 million internationally through the current SWIFT based system, intermediary banks on both ends, correspondent accounts, currency conversion, multi day processing can cost roughly $1,000 in fees alone. Using Ripple's infrastructure, that same transaction can be completed for a fraction of that. Even accounting for Ripple's own margin, the total cost to the end customer is still dramatically lower. Faster settlement, fewer failure points, a cost structure that makes the current system very difficult to defend against an informed competitor. Banks will notice that gap not because they want to disrupt their own revenue model, but because once competing institutions begin using this infrastructure and passing the savings to their customers, the institutions that do not adapt will lose business. That is not speculation. That is how competitive pressure works. There is also the regulatory alignment dimension. Ripple's banking charter application directly addresses pending U.S. legislation known as the Genius Act. This law, when passed, will require major stablecoins to operate under strict federal oversight. Ripple's charter application positions RLUSD, Ripple's dollar backed stablecoin, for compliance with that framework before the law arrives, not after. The companies that will need to restructure when the Genius Act passes will be behind an institution that built the compliance architecture first. One more layer is worth understanding: 2022. This is the new global standard for financial messaging, the communication language that modern payment systems use to exchange structured data with each other. Central banks and major payment networks around the world are migrating to this standard. Ripple's technology was built around ISO 20022 from the ground up. That compatibility is not accidental. It means Ripple's infrastructure speaks the same language as the institutions and regulators it is integrating with without requiring either side to rebuild from scratch. The banking charter application does not arrive in an empty room. It arrives inside a network assembled over years through deliberate, methodical partnership work. Understanding what is already in place is the key to understanding why the charter matters so much and why framing this as a beginning misses what has already been built. Hidden Road is the name that deserves far more attention than it typically receives. A prime broker is a financial intermediary that provides essential services to institutional clients, hedge funds, large asset managers, and major trading firms that move enormous sums of money. These clients need someone to handle settlement, clearing, financing, and custody at institutional scale. Prime brokerage is the infrastructure layer that the largest financial players in the world depend on to function. When an institutional client chooses a prime broker, they are placing serious trust in that relationship. Ripple acquired Hidden Road, and Hidden Road is already settling $3.5 trillion per year through RLUSD, not a pilot, not a proof of concept experiment in a test environment. $3.5 trillion annually. Live operational institutional settlement volume moving through Ripple's stablecoin infrastructure today. That volume exists right now before Ripple holds a banking charter and before it has direct access to FedWire. Think about what gaining direct Federal Reserve connectivity would do to that existing settlement operation. If transactions can move faster and at lower cost because Ripple now settles directly through federal infrastructure rather than through intermediary banks, that settlement volume does not contract. The infrastructure becomes stronger. The competitive advantage grows. BNY Mellon requires serious attention. It is one of the oldest financial institutions in the United States. It currently holds $52 trillion in assets under custody. One in every $4 custodied in the United States sits at BNY Mellon. That is not a regional institution. It is the custodian for the largest pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, endowments, and institutional investors in the world. BNY Mellon has been working with Ripple on asset tokenization, the process of representing traditional financial instruments as digital tokens that settle on a blockchain. And BNY Mellon is the custodian for RLUSD reserves. The dollar backing behind Ripple's stablecoin is held by one of the most trusted and regulated custodians in financial history. The institution responsible for one in every four custodied dollars in America is already the custodian for Ripple's stablecoin. That is not a speculative announcement. That is a structural integration between the new financial infrastructure and the old. For someone in their late 50s or early 60s who has spent decades building retirement savings in a financial system that was not designed for their benefit, wire transfer fees, 3 to 5 business day settlement windows, correspondent banks taking their cut before money arrived. What is being built here is a different model, one where settlement happens in seconds, where the cost of a transaction is a fraction of what it is today, where the infrastructure is federally compliant and connected directly to the Federal Reserve. What you are positioned in today, if the infrastructure continues to develop as documented, may become the foundation of something your family benefits from for years beyond your own investment horizon. The broader institutional network extends further. Santander, one of the leading global banks, has validated Ripple's technology for traditional banking and cross-border transactions. HSBC and Standard Chartered are in the network. Tomos, a banking software platform connected to 3,000 banks around the world, is integrated. Visa, Coinbase, Medico, a digital asset custody provider acquired by Ripple, which strengthens institutional-grade custody capabilities. SBI Holdings, a major financial conglomerate in Japan, has driven XRP adoption across Asia for the better part of a decade. Leon Global connects Ripple to the Chinese payments market, one of the largest payment ecosystems on the planet. The DIC Innovation Hub in Dubai provides access to the Middle East fintech ecosystem. John University in South Korea, a country where XRP is the largest cryptocurrency by adoption, surpassing even Bitcoin. MoneyGram represents some of the earliest cross-border payment integrations in Ripple's history. ARX, a regulated digital asset exchange, supports asset tokenization for trading and extends Ripple's presence in regulated crypto markets. On the XRP ledger itself, commercial paper, treasuries, and money market funds are being settled. These are not new instruments. They have existed in traditional finance for generations. The development is that they are being settled on blockchain infrastructure using Ripple's technology, bringing the speed and cost advantages of that infrastructure to asset classes with enormous existing volume. The stablecoin market provides a broader frame. $230 billion is currently issued on chain today across all stablecoin platforms globally. The expectation in the market is that this number will multiply by at least 5 in the coming years. Stablecoins are being described as crypto's newest killer app, the bridge between digital asset infrastructure and mainstream financial flows. Ripple with RLUSD in live institutional use at Hidden Road, A banking charter application filed with the OCC and BNY Mellon as custodian for its reserves is positioned inside that growth trajectory with a compliance and infrastructure foundation that most stablecoin issuers cannot currently match. The question that does not yet have a public answer, the one that every informed investor in this space is watching carefully, is the OC's timeline. How long will the review process take? What conditions might the OC attach to any approval? The application has been filed, the process has begun, but the charter is a different moment from the application, and that gap is where attention belongs right now. Pull the full picture together and the structure becomes clear. Ripple has filed for a national banking charter with the OC. If approved, it grants direct access to FedWire, processing $4.3 trillion per day, FedAC and FedNow. The intermediary layer disappears, settlement costs drop, regulatory legitimacy becomes federal. Every institutional conversation Ripple enters changes. Behind the charter is a network built over years. BNY Mellon, one in every 4 custody dollars in the United States, already holds RLUSD reserves and works with Ripple on tokenization. Hidden Road already settles $3.5 trillion annually through RLUSD. Santander, HSBC, Standard Chartered, Visa, Coinbase, Tamino's connected to 3,000 banks, SBI Holdings, Lean Global, Mako, documented operational relationships on the XRP ledger, commercial paper, treasuries, money market funds already running. The pattern here is not reactive, it is methodical. Ripple has spent years building regulatory compliance, institutional relationships, and technical infrastructure built around ISO 20022. The banking charter application is not the beginning of a strategy. It is the next visible move and one that has been in motion for a long time. The Genius Act connects directly to this picture. Major stablecoins will be required to operate under strict federal oversight. Ripple is building the RLUSD compliance architecture. Now, the institutions that restructure after the law arrives will be behind a company that built the structure first. There is a specific meaning to the phrase transition from speculation to utility. It means a phase where an asset is required not because of excitement about price potential, but because institutions need it to settle real transactions. When Hidden Road requires RLUSD to move $3.5 trillion a year, that demand is not sentiment-driven. It is operational. When FedWire processes transactions requiring instant settlement, and Ripple is the direct participant with the infrastructure to deliver that, the decision is institutional and structural. For investors who have followed this story through years of skepticism from the people around them, colleagues who called it a gamble, family members who questioned the decision, financial media that treated it as noise, the developments in this video are not surprises. They are confirmation. The infrastructure is documented, the network is in place, the regulatory pathway is open. What is still being written is the OC's response. And that is the chapter everyone serious about this space will be tracking closely in the months ahead. There are questions in this story that do not yet have public answers. And the next video will go deeper into what the OC review process actually looks like and what it means for the timeline. Does anyone in your personal circle, friends, family, people you work with, actually understand what has already been built here? Or are they still focused entirely on the price chart? Tell me in the comments. I am genuinely curious to hear where the people around you are on this. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening, go ahead and like it. It helps this channel reach more people who need to see this. and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Share this with someone in your circle who is only following domestic crypto news and has no idea what is happening globally. Stay informed, stay positioned. I will see you in the next